What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 3 of Roughing the Passer. As always, my name's Drew, here with John Newman. John, how's it going, man?
I woke up feeling dangerous this morning.
Hey, so did your Steelers, apparently. My goodness.
I know. Man. I don't know where this version came from. They must have been
Wow.
kidnapped and gagged in the closet, and they finally escaped.
And that Devin Bush kid, man, he's legit. He's showing up on prime time.
Yeah, he's the real deal. They traded up to get him. Now we see why. You know, I always tell my son, can you imagine if they had Shazier and him on the same field?
Oh, gosh. What could be, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he's really in a sense drafted because we lost Shazier. We've never really filled that hole. But yeah. I mean, imagine if Ryan was able to come back and actually play again with him being here now. It's just scary. I unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to see that. But it's crazy to think what kind of defense that might be had that occurred.
Absolutely. Well, you know, right as we start the show, they go into halftime. So you guys got 21-0 halftime lead. Solid start to this week for you guys. But let's jump right into it, man. It was a fun day of football today. Quite a few fun games. Go through a little rundown of a couple of them here. Obviously, on Thursday, you had the Patriots and the Giants. Patriots winning that 35-14. Just like you said, John, I say something bad about New England. Talked bad about them last week, and they do this on Thursday. So right on cue, even though they still started slow. They still started slow, and I'm not going to keep talking bad on them, no. Then going down the list, I guess first thing, we'll start with the game in London. I loved it, man. I'm normally not a fan of the London games, but I tell you what, you wake me when you're a single dad and you got to wake up anyway super early on Sunday. It's nice to have a football game that matters on right at 9:30 in the morning. And the Panthers and Bucks played over there across the pond over in London. And my Panthers, John, once again, 4-game winning streak now. We'll go on and light up the 2. 4-game winning streak. Did you get a chance to see any highlights of today's game?
I saw highlights. I didn't get to see it as it was happening. But yeah, man, you know, even on days where Christian McCaffrey doesn't have a great rushing day, he's so versatile. He beats him, you know, in the passing game, and that's what makes him so dangerous. That defense is playing pretty well, and you got Kyle Allen making Cam Newton look like an afterthought right now. As crazy as that might sound.
No, it was an interesting game. My MVP candidate was held in check for the most part. His touchdown run there, I don't know if you saw it. That still made him just look like a video game. I swear, when he gets going, there's nobody like him. But that was an interesting game to me. The Carolina defense right now, lights out. Like, this team, I mean, you give a defense like this, a quarterback like Jameis Winston, somebody that's prone to make turnovers to begin with. And I mean, you saw what happened. Thieves Ave came today. I think it was 5. I lost track. 5 interceptions, I believe it was.
5 picks and I wrote it down here. A 46.8 quarterback rating.
Yeah.
Like, I think I could fall out of bed on the wrong side and probably have a 55% quarterback. You know?
Well, and you know, Kyle Allen's impressing me too. And I'm somebody that I'm still not sold on him being a long-term solution at anything. But I mean, honestly, this reminds me, I was a big fan when it happened. It reminds me a lot of the Jake Delhomme year when we went to the Super Bowl. He reminds me a lot of Jake Delhomme. Delhomme came in the same type of situation. He had a very strong defense with him, which is what Kyle Allen has. And I said it in a group chat today, but if you give a quarterback, any quarterback that's got skill, if you give them a good defense, a semi-favorable schedule, but if you can put them out there and before the game slows down so much, if you can get them winning, if you can get that confidence high when the game is still, kind of all crazy and out there. Then when that game slows down, that's when you can truly see a quarterback develop. And that's why I think you see Josh Rosen, which we'll talk to in a little bit. I think that's why you see a quarterback like him get benched and a quarterback like Kyle Allen, which are two very similar guys at that. I think that just shows you how much of a difference it can make being like when you're thrust in there, getting thrust in there at the right time. And Kyle Allen, I mean, obviously it was with injury. He didn't have a chance to, but it was that combination of the line started blocking perfectly. The line started coming together. The defense started playing great. And if you go out there and make the plays, then that confidence is going to grow. And you're seeing it right now. 4-game winning streak, tied for the division lead. Well, I mean, I guess technically a half game back, but hey, I'm a Panther fan, so I call it a tie.
Yeah. Another name I'll mention, bring back some memories. He's still around, not as a player anymore. Tony Romo.
Yeah.
This is how Tony Romo got the Dallas job back in the day. And he kind of came in and never gave it up and had a pretty good career. Not a Hall of Famer in my book, but there's some Dallas fans that would argue that Tony Romo's a Hall of Famer. But that's I know it's early yet, but that's sort of the comparison I make in early stages with Allen and Tony Romo is he may not relinquish the job for who knows? You don't know. Right now, they're not going to go to anyone else. You really can't.
No, you can't. And that's the thing. Like, if he had gone through this, even if you give him one loss, I think through this point, I think you can have the discussion. Like, let's say Cam, we have our bye week now. So obviously with a week off, the news has to figure out something to talk about here in Charlotte. So it's all going to be about, will Cam come back? And I think if he loses one game, or if a couple of these games were even, nail biters where you could say, okay, well, if this didn't happen, then they lose, then I think you can make that discussion. But this is, I mean, he's making a believer out of me, and I'm somebody that I'm not going to give him just unheralded praise, but he's someone that's actually making a believer out of me.
So here's the dilemma. When Newton is healthy and cleared to play and wants to play, he's going to want to play. In his mind, he's the starter. How is this going to work? What's the dynamic going to be in that locker room? Is he going to be a malcontent? Is he going to disrupt what a good thing that Carolina has going? And so that's you don't have to worry about it just yet, but that's what's coming down the line. And I don't know. The front office has got to be. If I'm thinking about it, I'm sure they're thinking about it.
Yeah. Especially when you didn't draft the guy. Tepper's sitting here thinking, okay, well, I've got to start this franchise over sooner or later and bring it into the complete mold of his image. And is Cam that guy? I mean, that's question number one. He's the guy paying the bills. But I mean, honestly, 2 weeks ago when we started the show, I even said, when Cam gets healthy, you got to throw him back in there because you've got to boost his trade value. You've got to let him see what he is, and you've got to figure out if you want to commit. Well, it's still not a lot of money. Andy Dalton will make more next year. It's still a hefty investment. So you've got to see what you have. But Kyle Allen's making that where I completely changed my tune on that. You've got to ride the wave with him. The defense is playing, like I said, lights out. You can ride a hot defense and a young quarterback that's getting confidence. I mean, you can ride that far, especially considering the hot mess that's Atlanta. Tampa seeming like they're playing like Carolina was the year after the Super Bowl, up and down, up and down, up and down. And New Orleans is just New Orleans, which we'll get to in just a moment. But guys, we'll move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll move on now to a couple more games that happened today. You got the battle of the behemoths, the Redskins and the Dolphins, slugfest, which Washington was able to handle 17-16 in a thriller. Then you also had the Ravens and Bengals, one of your guys, John, your division rivals. competitive game, 23-17. I don't know. Did you get a chance to see any of that game at all? All I thought was Lamar Jackson had a decent game.
I didn't get to see it. I was obviously hoping the Bengals could pull off the upset. They were in the zip code, you know, they were right there. Lamar Jackson, you know, for not watching the game, you know, his quarterback rating was under 100 as far as passing.
Yeah.
He ran for 123 yards. And it's what I said, you know, and I'm still going to – I know a lot of people won't agree with me, Drew, but I'm going to say it. He's really a running back who can throw the ball a little bit, but he's not very accurate. He struggles with the deep ball. He's better this year than he was even last year, but teams are starting to watch. You know, he got more tape on the guy, so they can game plan for him. They can set up defenses kind of to negate some of his strength and try to expose some of his weaknesses. He's just a talented athlete that – he's still gonna make plays. You're not gonna fully shut him down. But I think, you know, the last few weeks, even the Steeler game is just showing you when, you know, he's kind of loaded his stats up on a lot of those weaker teams. And then when he gets today's not a great example because the Bengals are winless. But when he plays a legitimate team, he's sort of I don't want to say kept in check, but you know, he's fattening up his numbers against a lot of those bottom dweller type teams. And then when he gets into real teams, he still has a decent game, but he's not what a lot of people make him out to be when he's playing the Dolphins. You know, and
well, yeah.
And
what I hear right now is I'm a Steeler fan. No, I'm just kidding. I agree with you. I agree with you on it. And you know, a lot of these things that you're saying are the same criticisms that I heard a lot of when Cam Newton came out and when he was starting and after he had his huge start and then the little bit of a drop off that he had. I mean, I see the same thing, but I don't know. I'm unsold on Lamar Jackson because I want to see what he can do this year because he has weapons. He has talent around him, and they had what's now looking to be a pretty favorable schedule. I didn't think it would be at the beginning of the year, but it's actually looking like a decent schedule now. I'm curious to see what he can do this year, but I'm kind of leaning towards you. He's getting by a lot of these games that he's getting the W, so he's going to get the credit for it, but I don't know if you should necessarily be putting all of that on him.
Yeah. And you watch it, his accuracy still in question.
Yeah.
He misses open guys. Downfield, he doesn't throw a great ball necessarily. He's young. I mean, that's what he's going for. And he's athletic and you know, he gets with the right coach and quarterback coach and that stuff can be, you know, developed.
That's everything.
More.
That's everything in the NFL these days.
I hope it don't happen as a Steeler fan. But you know, he's improved a little bit since last year, but it's not light years at all. You know, I watched the game 2 weeks ago between them and the Steelers, and you know, he didn't really. You know, the only way he really scared me was kind of running out of the pocket.
Yeah.
But in the pocket, I didn't have a fear of him. And you know, even running out of the pocket, he, you know, once he starts to scramble, and I used to coach for, he tends to stop looking downfield and he becomes solely a runner. He becomes one dimensional. So a defensive coordinator can kind of scheme against that, you know, kind of flush him out and then make him a runner, and then, you know, have your ends kind of flare out a little bit more to keep him contained, so to speak. And I think you're seeing a little bit of that. He's just a freak athlete, you know, who's blessed with a lot of talent, who's going to still make plays sometimes out of nothing. But you know, again, he's young, he's got time, but I don't think he's there yet. And if this is more the ceiling than the low end, then, you know, I don't know if he's a guy that wins you the Super Bowl, which I think ultimately that's what everyone wants in their quarterback.
And that's kind of, while we're here, it's something I wanted to touch on today, so we'll touch on it anyway. And guys, I just posted it up here on the screen, so please leave a comment, let us know what you think, and we'll get back to it. But you said, has he hit his ceiling? And that's what I'm curious about, and I think that's gonna come down a lot to coaching, and that's where my concern is in Baltimore, because I'm one of the people that's of the opinion that Joe Flacco, had he had a little bit better coaching and a little bit better time to develop, that he had the tools to win a lot more than one Super Bowl in Baltimore. And I think that does have a lot to do with scheme these days. Do you think Lamar Jackson is in the right place? I mean, they got rid of Flacco for him. They cleared the way. This is, they're full steam ahead. This is their future. So you think they would start to surround him with, like you said, a quarterback's coach, coordinator, and everybody that plays to his strengths. But up until now, I don't really see them doing that. Do you think Baltimore is a good fit for him?
Well, some of that too, Drew, falls on the player itself.
It does.
I mean, you have a whole off season. What are you going to do with your off season? You're going to, hang with your buds, shoot videos, chill out, or you're going to, there's 10, 12 good quarterback gurus, they're called, guys that just mold quarterbacks and go to the film room and do kind of, plyometrics that pertain to quarterbacks. And,
right.
So, I mean, if he wants to take that next step, some of that, it does fall on the organization. It's a great point by you, but some of that also falls on the player. If they don't think they're getting that in-house, then go yourself and go to the next level. And, they're allowed to do that. And most players do their own off-season workout, some of them together, players together, even from different teams. So, some of that's going to be on him to just, train, maybe go with one of these elite quarterback coaches and watch film of himself with that coach and see what can we do mechanically and what can I do. They got all sorts of drills and things set up. They can work on accuracy and on the run.
Oh, yeah.
And, they got all that stuff. And so some of that, I'm going to take, the Ravens organization slightly off the hook. Some of that's on him. You could hire whoever as a quarterback's coach, as an offensive coordinator, as a head coach, but the players got to be willing to go that extra mile too. And so some of it, I'm going to put more of it on Lamar Jackson than the Ravens. They have a hand in the pie, obviously too. This is their player. But he's got an off season where he can develop himself as well too, and that's on him. If he wants to, maybe not train as much and do some traveling or whatnot, and a lot of players do that. But, a lot of times that's the older players that have already kind of put in the grind and put in. He's a young player that is highly regarded, and if he kind of wants to live up to that billing, it's really the onus is going to be on him to do take the next step.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if he does. But like I said, Ravens jumped out. I guess depending on what happens in this game, looks like they're going to be up there atop the division. But moving on to a couple other games that happened today, we had the Saints and the Jaguars. The Saints winning 13-6 in a game I got to watch a pretty good amount of. And I mean, you want to talk about a defensive contest. That was nothing but defense. But Saints, yet again, without Drew Brees, which drives me crazy, still winning games. So, I mean, hey, at least, my saving grace is the Panthers are on a 4-game winning streak, but it doesn't look like the Saints are going to be losing anytime soon. But pretty good game there today. I don't know if you got a chance to see any of it. Minshew played good, but we talked a lot, and I've said it a lot about coaching. This game right here, I'll show you. The Saints defense, we knew it was good, but their game plan today for Minshew and the Jags, I mean, it worked to perfection.
Yeah, I think, a lot of times when guys first come in the league, rookies, there's really not a lot of tape, and there's still not a ton of tape on Minshew. But there's a few games now that teams can go to, look at tendencies, what they tend to do on yardage and downs. Certain quarterbacks kind of roll out the same way all the time, and you can kind of scheme against that. I still think he's got potential. I think there's, like they say in football, you can't measure someone's heart, and I think he's shown he's got plenty of that. Another guy that works with coaches, maybe does some stuff in the off season. He can be in this league 10 years, or he could be out of it in 2. He's one of those kind of players, and he'll be interesting to watch to see, how he develops, and when Foles comes back from injury, whenever that may be. They paid Foles quite a bit of money.
They did.
So it's probably a safe guess that they're going to give the job back to Foles. And if Minshew can build up a decent amount of resume, he may actually be a valuable trade chip for them. If they choose to go that route, which they might not. They might kind of value him as the second guy or first guy off the bench, if you will, if he can accept that role. What sometimes happens, this as well as I do, is sometimes these guys get a taste of starting and playing, and then they don't want to go back to where they were before.
Kirk Cousins. Perfect example. I mean, in my opinion, I still think people like Nick Foles are better than him. But yeah, no, I completely agree. Minshew, I hope nothing but the best for him, obviously being an East Carolina guy, one of his 50 colleges being East Carolina. I love the kid. I hope he does great. But yeah, they game planned well against him today. Like you said, there's not a lot of film on him yet. This is such a league where the offenses are so open and the schemes are so technical that if you get a quarterback that can run them, especially before you get film, then you're going to see stuff. I mean, look at Sean McVay. Before anyone had tons of film on him, he was taking the league by storm. Every single week it was talking about how he's a mad genius. Look what happens when you get a little film on it. It's a couple scores down here. We'll talk about it in just a minute. But moving on now, you also had the Seahawks and the Browns. Seahawks winning this game, coming from behind to win 32-28. It's always interesting to me. I have a lot of Cleveland fans on my timeline, or maybe just a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon. But it's really funny to me watching Cleveland fans live tweet during a game, because that whole first half, it was Baker this, Baker that, Cleveland's back in it, and then it's just dead silence the rest of the day. So always fun watching those games. Then you had Eagles and Vikings. Vikings winning 38-20. Two teams right there, man, that I just can't get a firm grasp on. Every single week they look completely different. The Vikings, Kirk Cousins might be trying to prove me wrong here. This is 2 weeks in a row the Vikings have put up some big numbers. Are the Vikings back to being the team? Are the Vikings the team now that we thought they were going to be, or the experts thought they were?
I'm a big Mike Zimmer guy. I think he's an underrated coach. I like him a lot. Apparently, I guess to get your quarterback to play better, if you're a receiver, you just complain and get him and throw him under the bus.
Yeah.
But he's responded. I gotta be honest. Maybe the way to do it was a little obscure, but it worked, I guess. And he's playing better. They're winning. They're above 500. They're very much in the mix, and it amazes me. When all that stuff came out with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, they were still like 2-2 at that time.
Yeah,
and this team's acting like they're 1-3 or 0-4.
It's expectations. They thought they were going to be a lot better. And I mean, let's face it, when you get that close to the Super Bowl and then you add somebody like Cousins, you should have those expectations.
Yep.
But it's been interesting to watch. I'm just curious to see if now have they finally arrived? Are they finally going to start playing that ball? And the Eagles, I mean, that team, you want to talk about a bunch of talent that's not producing. Look no further than Philly. But moving on now, you've also got the Texans and the Chiefs in a wild game today where the Texans actually ended up winning 31-24. I got a chance to watch some of this game. Did you, looking at this game, what did you think?
Well, I watched this game start to finish. This was the first game of the day that I watched. A battle of what some might will call the two best quarterbacks in Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. They both played fairly well. Mahomes is hurt, and you don't have to be a Kansas City Chiefs fan to figure that out. He's got a bad ankle. He's thrown off his back foot. He threw a couple picks today, very un-Mahomes-like, if you will, and both of those picks were back foot throws.
And that Tyreek Hill catch, which they really needed to get Tyreek Hill back to have any deep threat whatsoever. But even on that Tyreek Hill catch, if he doesn't show off his absolutely insane vertical leap and go up and get that ball, it's completely underthrown. Normally, that's the ball that Mahomes and him, it's that pitch and catch, like a full court LeBron just pass. It's clockwork, but you could see it today. Everything a little off. I mean, I liken it back to when Cam was hurt. You could see it, and you can physically see something is wrong with Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, you can tell the difference. Even the announcer said the zip on the ball is not there like before. But it's funny. A 75% Mahomes is probably better than a lot of people's 100% starters. So he still toughed it out. He almost got him a win. That's a big win for Houston in Kansas City.
It is.
And that's a team. If we're talking about dilemma teams I can't figure out, like which team is the real team. Houston fits that bill for me.
Big time.
They look like they did today. And then they could go play the Colts and lose by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And so, I like Bill O'Brien. If he was my coach, I wouldn't have no qualms about it. But his teams have shown sort of a track record of showing a lot of promise, and then when all the smoke clears, it doesn't really happen. And if this is the real Houston today, they're going to be a team to reckon with. Obviously, in the AFC, you go into Arrowhead and pull out a win. I don't care, hurt or not hurt, Mahomes. To win in that stadium is very difficult. They did it, and the other impressive thing about their win, Drew, is not only did they win, they were in the lead, then they fell behind and they came back. So it wasn't like they got out of the gates and never looked back. They had to rally themselves in hostile ground, and they did it. And
those are the games I want to see from Watson right now, because as you're trying to figure out who he is, kind of like where we were last year with Pat Mahomes, when you're trying to figure out who he is as a quarterback, these are the type of games that I want to see. And that's what impressed me most was how he handled this game. I didn't get a chance to watch the entire game. I was getting chased around with a sword by my son. But the little bit that I did see, I was incredibly impressed with how he handled when he was down. And that, like I said, that to me is going to be the key in his development. Now, unlike you, I'm not sold on Bill O'Brien. I think they need to get somebody else in there, but it's also one of those, who are you going to bring in? But to me, it's you leave it. You stick with what you have right now. But if it's me, I'm looking and waiting 2 or 3 years and grabbing some people off of a couple of new coaches' coaching trees to help finish his development. My goodness, where was this Pittsburgh team? You guys are just destroying the Chargers. I apologize, but this is funny.
We both picked this game in our picks.
I know.
I'm glad I'm losing, but we're both going to lose this on our picks. So
well, we'll get to our picks here in just a little bit, because there were some surprising ones. But dive right back into the scoreboard. I like this one. We'll focus on this one for a second. The Cardinals absolutely dominating the Atlanta Falcons, 34-33.
You ready? Is it time for my Dan Quinn traditional comment?
It is. Let's dive right into it. Let's go.
I wish I actually was at Lowe's today, and I almost did. I should have did. I was going to buy a for sale sign, and this would be the point of the show where I would hold it up. So we'll just pretend that I have a for sale sign in my hands. This would be where I'm holding my for sale sign up, and this is what Dan Quinn's going to have to put in his yard very soon here. So he just got a sort of lukewarm vote of confidence from Arthur Blank, saying he wanted to see some improvement, that he's not making a coaching change. Well, today was no improvement. So, I think it's imminent. I don't know if they do it during the year or they wait till the season's over. But let's be real. You know that division. There's way too much talent on that Atlanta Falcons team.
Oh, yeah.
To have their record and to be losing games the way they're doing it. They got, a couple running backs. I'm not a huge Devonta Freeman fan. You got a former MVP in Matt Ryan. You got a receiving core that's maybe one of the better ones in football. I guess the problem is on the defensive side, but you got a defensive guru as a head coach. So come up with, the mark of a good defensive coach is one that can kind of scheme even to lesser talents and get it done. So
no, I agree. Daniel Haloti, who's watching the show, shout out to Daniel. He said it right here. They can't find any defensive consistency, and there's no flash in the running game. And I mean, that's going to nail it right there. But that's also something that you've got to be able to overcome. You just have to, especially with a quarterback like Matt Ryan. With that team, you have to do it. And I love it. I think it's wonderful. But Atlanta can dwell in the bottom all they want. But Dan Quinn I know Arthur Blank kind of has that whole Jerry Jones, Jason Garrett feel for him, it seems like. But you've got to at this point, you have to. It's becoming. You're becoming an embarrassment. It's getting to the point now, if they were to play the Dolphins next week, I'd pick Miami if they started Fitzpatrick.
I don't know if I'd pick Miami, but I'd probably stay away from the game in general. Just that's how crazy it is. And, today they lose on a missed extra point. They're just finding different ways to lose. They gave up 50-something points last week. They give up 30-something points this week to a rookie quarterback. Change has got to come there. The current staff is they got too many weapons to not be a little more successful. And, he's been there a little bit now. It's what we've said, since that Super Bowl, it's just, there's a bad taste in that locker room, and they almost got to get disinfected. They got to clean it all out, start fresh with a new staff. A staff that can come in and say, listen, we weren't here for that. It's over. It's done with. Yeah. Let's start fresh. Whatever.
Something has to change, because we talked about it last week. It does feel like it just permeates in there, that loss just, no matter what, it's one of those things that's just going to come back to kind of like in Ace Ventura, Finkel and Einhorn. He misses the kick, ruins the franchise forever. It happens. Yeah. But we'll keep going down now to the most exciting game of the week, the Broncos and the Titans, where the Broncos won 16-0. That's absolutely pathetic. Mariota gets benched. Not benched.
He's on one of my lists for
stock
up, stock down. I'm sure you can guess which one he made.
Yeah, we'll be talking about him quite a bit later. Yeah. And then two other games for the week. You've got the 49ers and the Rams with a shocking score that I want to talk about a little bit more later, with the 49ers winning 20-7 and staying undefeated at 5-0 now. And then rounding out the week, you had the Jets beating the Cowboys 24-22. So those last couple games that I just said, Sean, lots to talk about here, and lots just an absolute mess in some situations. I'm going to let you pick which one you want to start with. You want to start with over in St. Louis, in Dallas, where there's quite a few things to go with here.
I'll go with the Dallas Jets game. That's the other game I watched for the most part, most of it. Didn't really see this one coming. I'll be honest with you. I thought it would be an interesting game, but I figured Dallas would pull away if anything, and they got behind early and they could never. They made a couple runs, but they just ran out of time. And I don't know. A lot of people. I see a lot of the Dallas fans on their timelines calling for Jason Garrett not to get on the team plane and come back. To Dallas.
Actually, while we've been on this show and right before we started, I had it on mute, but I've got the game on right here. And Jerry Jones already came out at halftime and already said that Jason Garrett's job is completely safe and that there's nothing to worry about. And I mean, I don't think Jason Garrett would have to murder Jerry Jones' family, and he's still, depending on which of the sons or whoever he decided to kill, he still might have his job. The dude, I don't know what videotape he has on Jerry Jones, but
he might have some pictures.
It's that Jeff Fisher thing, man. I mean, Jeff Fisher kept every job in the world and didn't deserve any of them. He's got something on everybody, but I did not see that coming. But Daniel actually raises a good point here, and something on the flip side, on the Dallas side, that Darnold cemented himself as the guy in New York today. Agree?
Yep. Oh yeah, and so here I'll go a little bit up in that draft. When that draft was over, obviously Mayfield was the number one pick. The year Mayfield had last year, which was, let's be real, better than Darnold, and a lot of people said, "Well, no, it's early. Darnold, long-term, Darnold's going to be the better quarterback." Right now, it's not that way, but long-term. Well, here we are in year 2, and I know Darnold's just coming off the bout with mono, and think about his performance today. His first game off that illness, and he plays like he did today. And it's looking like, let's be real, it's looking like those people that said Darnold is the better long-term quarterback than Mayfield. Right now, that's what it's starting to look like, with Mayfield starting to be a little bit interception prone. I don't want to say I guess you can say partly the reason they're not winning. I don't want to say costing them games, but his play has hurt in the win.
Yeah, I don't know if he's costing them games, but he's definitely not helping them win. I mean, he's not putting him in position to win. Yeah. But Darnold, I mean, it's interesting. I was not sold on him. It might be because Colin Cowherd talked him up so much, and I just it gets to the point where I just laugh. But this was a big game. I mean, I always consider the Sunday afternoon games, the Sunday afternoon Fox games, and the Sunday night games, at least nowadays, to be like the prime time games. They're the games that you're probably going to get the most eyes on. Normally the most competitive, unless you put Pittsburgh and the Chargers on in October, apparently.
I want to play the Chargers every week, apparently.
Yeah. So. But it's Darnold. He's blowing my mind. I did not see this coming today, but I do think he's the future in New York. I think they've got a lot of problems, but I think they're building something pretty good. But on the Dallas side of things, dude, Dak Prescott, I said it last week, I think, but dude, aren't you trying to get paid? Like, I mean, at what point? I know that you're losing weapons. Cooper went down, but Gallup, hell of a player, in my opinion. Witten, great tight end. You got Zeke. I know you've got line problems. I know they've got issues, but Dak is one of those guys that he doesn't look visibly hurt like Pat Mahomes does. He doesn't look like something's wrong. Yet he looks night and day than from the beginning of the year. So, I mean, which Dak is the real Dak, and what Dallas team are we going to get?
Drew, look at the opponents they played the beginning of the year.
Right.
It's another, we talked about this with Lamar Jackson earlier in the show. quarterbacks and other position players do this too. Against those weaker teams, they have those big games. Everyone buys in, gets excited, calls them the next, Barry Sanders or the next Joe Montana, and then they get into the real meat of the schedule, real defensive, real coaches, and then the real player kind of shows their hand. I think that's what's going on with Dak Prescott. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. And if Dallas wants to pay $40 million for a good quarterback, then Jerry, maybe Jerry's over the hill and should leave it to his son Steven to run, because those are that kind of decisions that can set your franchise back. And when you're paying Elliott quite a big chunk of money, and if they back up the Brinks truck and pay Dak, it's going to affect other positions.
Yeah, you pay both of them, you've got nothing.
O-line. You're seeing the O-line chinks in the O-line now. Yep. And you could argue your quarterback is going to really only be as good as your O-line. So
absolutely.
They got some decisions to make there. Jerry has shown he's sort of a loyal guy, almost to a fault. He'll overpay for a guy because he likes him. He likes him, and he's playful with him, like Zeke.
Well, he can throw that guaranteed money around. So one thing they do, it is a lot of that fluff for news article and news release pieces. A lot of that does go into his guaranteed money. But you're right. If he likes somebody, he thinks of them as family. He's always wanted to be a football player. And so he does, give them that little extra money. But it'll be interesting to see if he actually gets the contract that he wants. He should have signed. I wish we had this show before the season. That's what I would have said, is he needs to sign before this year started. I thought it was nuts that he wanted to bank on himself. I saw his endorsement money. I know he's getting very, very nicely paid on that side of things, but I still think he should have signed that contract last offseason, because sadly for him, at least, I think the Dak you've seen the last couple of weeks is the one that you're probably going to see a lot more this year.
Yep. I agree with you. And, let's be real. They're not winning Super Bowls. No. The way Jerry's doing things and the whole family, I'll pay you a little extra stuff. That's not, he might be liked by the team and the players, but it's not putting rings on their fingers. And, going back to Jason Garrett, Drew, I know he likes him, but if that team does, I'll say this right now, if that team falls short and doesn't qualify for the playoffs, Jason Garrett's offensive coordinating somewhere else next year. I don't even think he'll be hired as a head coach. He'll have to go in as an OC.
No, if when he loses this job, he's a coordinator. Absolutely. Yeah. He doesn't deserve a head coaching job like we were talking about last week. Guys that get that one job like Ron Rivera, when he eventually gets fired, he's going back to DC. Garrett will go back to coordinator. Absolutely. Yeah. But before we move on to stock down, I wanted to ask one question, because I had it here in my notes and I'm looking at everything. I'm posting it here live. Anybody that's watching the show, definitely let me know. But San Francisco, they beat the Rams today, 20-7. They're 5-0, top of the NFC, one of two undefeated teams. Are they the best team in football? I know last week I said Seattle. The NFC West, I mean, this is absolutely one heck of a stat conference. But when you look at this San Francisco team, how good are they? And are they as good as that 5-0 record suggests?
I'm going to tell you, they have the best defense in the NFL. Yeah. So, that you might have heard this saying before. I stole this. Defense wins championships. So don't get me wrong, I'm not crowning the 49ers Super Bowl champs, but defense does go a long way in the NFL when you can stop teams and stop them from scoring, and you can generate a little offense and a run that you're going to win ball games. That's what they're doing. I'm going to stop short of saying they're the best team. They're probably playing the best football right now. They got the best defense. I think they're on their way. Nick Bosa is playing like a veteran. The thing was, you heard coming into this draft that he's going to be better than Joey. I didn't think it was going to happen this quickly.
Me neither. Me neither.
So and he is,
Yeah. No, absolutely. Their defense is playing lights out, and I think it's them in Carolina when it comes to defense. I think those are the top two defenses from top to bottom when you're looking at front seven and the secondary. I think you've got San Francisco and Carolina as the defenses, but they're an interesting team to me. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback, which I'm going to get to in a minute, whose stock has bounced up and down as much as Jimmy Garoppolo's has in his career. I mean, you being in the hobby like myself, to talk about the hobby for a second, I mean, good God, how many times does Jimmy Garoppolo hype come around? I mean, you had the pre-draft hype, then when he sat on the bench, and then when he got traded, then when he got hurt. Now here, I mean, it goes up and down and up and down. It looks like he's finally putting it together. I don't think they're the best team in football. I think that it's one of those examples of a team that you don't have a lot of tape on the team that's out there right now. And when you've got a good defense and you're building something completely new, I think it's hard to stop like LA was last year. And I think that's what you're seeing in San Francisco. But it's definitely an interesting story. I did not expect, with two undefeated teams left, to be saying one of them being the 49ers. But here we are. So those are the scores for today's game. So, John, now let's dive right into our stock up, stock down for the week. And then we'll get into our picks after that. But we'll start with stock up, and I'll let you go on and jump on first. Who you got for stock up this week?
Well, I got three guys. Two are quarterbacks, one receiver. I'll go. We talked about them already. Sam Darnold. 23 for 32, 338 yards, 2 TDs. And again, first game back off mono. I'm not a nurse or a doctor, but I married a nurse, so I have those qualifications. But if you know anything about mono, people think, it's a kissing disease. I watched the Brady Bunch, I get it. But it's actually a very serious illness, and you can be.
It is.
You can actually die from it. It's not common. It's not, doesn't happen very often. But he had to wear a protective thing to protect his spleen, and to play like that. I'm sure that thought's in the back of his head. That what if I get hit in the spleen and it erupt? That thought's got to be in anyone's head that's has that going on. And to come back off of that illness and play the way he did today. And let's be real, they don't have, 338 yards, other than Robbie Anderson. Can you name, their receiving core is probably one of the lower groups
absolutely
in the league. And to have those kind of numbers, again, off mono, coming back, first game back nonetheless. And against the Dallas team, it wasn't like he's playing the Dolphins. Now I know we just kind of nitpicked on Dallas, and I believe everything we said is accurate, but they're still the Dallas Cowboys.
They are,
and to do that against Dallas, first game back off mono, 113 quarterback rating, that says a lot, and it does look like he's going to be their quarterback of the future. Now they just have to plug in some stuff around them, and they could be. The Jets are not as far away, maybe as their record may indicate. And
I'll completely agree with you there. 100%. They're a lot closer to being a playoff team than people think. So who else you got for stock up this week?
Another guy, and I got to preface by saying I don't know. I'm still not a believer, but. It's hard to argue with what he did today against a Dan Quinn defense for what that's worth. But Kyler Murray, 27 for 37, 340 yards passing, 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, and another 32 yards on the ground. Now, I don't know if that's a combination of being talented and playing the Atlanta Falcons, but, you have those kind of numbers. You can't argue with them. I don't think you should expect that every week, but I also
Oh,
believe
no,
in
no, 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 no.
when I pick on a guy, and I've been critical of him and him being
Yeah.
picked first. When you pick on a guy, when they have a game like they do today, you got to take your hat off to
Yeah.
him and say, for 1 week, at least I'm wrong. I'm wrong on Kyler Murray. Now,
And-
I think this is more the anomaly than the norm, but
yeah.
this week he got it done. You could say it was. I could say it's point. You could point to this Atlanta team that's going the wrong way, and he fattened up his number. But I think the one thing that impresses me more about that line, Drew, is the no picks than the 3 touchdowns.
Yep. In a close game too. In a close, high-scoring game, you expect a couple of turnovers in your stat line, especially from a rookie.
And he didn't do that. So kudos to him this week. He got it done. And my last guy is, a really terrible game, but Terry McLaurin.
Yes.
4 catches, 100 yards, 2 TDs.
Which,
Washington, they're looking. When's the last time they've had a legitimate receiver? Art Monk might have been it. So
yeah.
Syracuse.
Which speaking of him, if you guys saw my daily fantasy picks today, I told you to put him in your lineup before the game started today. Once again, daily fantasy, if you follow me, it's 3 weeks since we've done this show. All 3 would have put you in the money on both games, standard or 50-50. I'm going to pat myself on the back real quick for that. But that dude is 100% legit, and he dominated daily fantasy today. But I love him. I think he is incredibly talented, and like you said, on a Washington team that, let's be honest, doesn't have a good history with receivers. Doxson comes to mind. I mean, you can go down the list of guys who are disappointments. But he looks to be pretty good. So I like all 3 of those stock ups. I think all of them definitely are on the rise. A couple of them, I think, have a little higher ceiling than others, but we'll see how that goes. So for my stock ups this week, I've got 2 of them. They're both quarterbacks and guys that we've actually talked a little bit about already. But when looking at the stats and just looking at where they are, I could not go with them. And that's Deshaun Watson and Jimmy Garoppolo. Watson, I mean, we said it. The dude, 280 yards and a touchdown, adding 2 rushing touchdowns in there. He had an interception, I know, but I mean, really willing a team to win, like you said, that coming from behind, having the lead, losing a lead, keeping your composure, coming back. It's what you want to see out of a quarterback. So, I mean, I don't see how he could have had a better day if you're talking about Deshaun Watson stock than he had, unless it's a 5-6 touchdown game.
I watched the game, Drew.
Yeah.
And Will Fuller, who's actually turning into a pretty good receiver, he dropped literally almost on back-to-back plays. It wasn't quite back-to-back, but he literally dropped 2 long balls that he should have caught. So whatever
doesn't surprise Will Fuller dropping a ball does not surprise me, but that's,
so you can look at Deshaun's stat line and then factor those 2 balls that Will Fuller dropped that were both over 40 yards. So and he was a guy, just real brief, I'll say it quick. He was a guy coming out of Clemson. I thought he was going to be a good quarterback. I didn't think he was going to be great. And again, I have to admit, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I think he's really starting to put himself, if not already there, in that elite class.
I wasn't a believer at all. He's making me eat my words completely. I'm turning a corner completely on my view on him. I now think that if he has the right people around him, he can be something very special. And I mean, I think you saw what he can be when he has good coaching when he was at Clemson. But let's move on now to stock down.
You go first.
All right, stock down this week. I'm sticking with quarterbacks. My stock up, stock down is going to be all quarterbacks this week. I've got 2 of them. My first is Jared Goff. Absolutely disgraceful for performance today. 78 yards passing. I mean, it's absolutely hideous. And just the LA offense, I mentioned it briefly, they just can't get going. it's one of those where it almost looked like McVay used every single trick he had last year. And now you just study it. You scheme against it. And unless you're going to, I mean, it's a chess game. We all know this. Unless you're going to scheme against it and make some adjustments, nothing's going to happen. And you're seeing it right there. And Goff is, you want to talk about guys I was never sold on? Goff is somebody. He made me eat my words last year like crazy, but he's coming back down to reality this year fast. And honestly, LA's in some trouble. If McVay can't get this turned around quick with some scheme stuff to get Goff. I mean, there was no short passing. There was nothing. He had nothing. He never got into any rhythm all day long. And I know San Francisco's defense is amazing, but this is not the first game this year that they've struggled in. Yeah, so
he's one of my 3 stock down. So we killed one guy with one stone, if you will. But like you said, 78 yards, a 60.8 passer rating today. And let's be real, he's got weapons there. It's not like the cupboard's empty.
Tons.
He cannot say, well, I know Gurley's hurt, but he's kind of been not himself either already. And you got Darrell Henderson's that proven that he may be the next guy anyway. And
Cooper Kupp is an incredibly good wide receiver.
And they got Robert.
They have weapons.
Yeah, they got plenty of weapons. So he really doesn't have an excuse other than I just played terrible. And like you said, this isn't the first game.
No.
And they just paid him
exactly
a good sum of money. So they got a dilemma. If he's not going to be that guy, now they're locked into that guy, and they better fix him and make him the guy, because that's going to be one heck of a hit if they can't, and they got to go out and get somebody else. A young rookie or draft a quarterback. So that they went from a Super Bowl contender to kind of middle of the pack very quickly. And you said I like Sean McVay. I do think he's a good coach, but here's where he's going to kind of earn his stripes.
Yep. This is where you're going to see if he's truly that coaching genius, or if he's a guy that can put together a brilliant scheme that nobody's seen before. I mean, this is where you adjust and keep going. So we'll see. But the second guy on my stock down list this week, and I mean, really, there's only one sentence to describe it, but it's Marcus Mariota. And the sentence is, you were benched for Ryan Tannehill. I mean, Jesus, dude. I mean, come on. And we're a common theme, I guess, at tonight's show. People I was never sold on. I didn't like Mariota or Winston coming out of college. I didn't think either of them were going to be that top-tier elite quarterback. And Tennessee, I thought, overachieved a lot this year. They've put on some really good performances, and they put on some really bad ones. But today, I mean, this could be a turning point game in Marcus Mariota's career. I thought this was a crucial season for them, and especially for him in particular. And a game like this, I mean, this could end up literally being one of the last games you see Marcus Mariota being considered a viable starter in the NFL.
Yep. We must have the same list. He's another guy on my side.
Well, they played awful. They were terrible.
And that's the thing. These performances are so bad you cannot not put them on your stock down.
I tried to find somebody that wasn't a quarterback. I tried. Couldn't.
7 for 18, 63 yards, 2 picks, and like you said, they called for the bullpen and Ryan Tannehill. And Tennessee's another team. One week they look like world beaters, and then and I don't think either quarterback's the answer there. They better be starting to scout some college quarterbacks as who's going to be their next guy. Maybe even, get on the phone lines and start to talk to some of these teams for, a guy that they have on their bench that's young that they think might have some talent. I don't know what the Panthers, if I'm calling for Will Grier, I'll call Carolina and say, how much do you love Will Grier? You know, 'cause,
Right.
maybe we can make a deal. If Kyle Allen's going to be the guy, and then I don't know. That might not be a great example, but I don't think the bottom line is Mariota and Tannehill. Neither one of them are NFL starters, and that's your
No.
two options. And like you said, I think you nailed it on the head, Drew. I think Mariota has proven that he's probably not going to be a starter in this league. I think he'll be in the league. He's still
absolutely.
but he's going to be the second guy, going to play when someone gets hurt, that sort of deal, or maybe they struggle.
And he'll probably, I mean, in all honesty, even when he leaves Tennessee, if that's what ultimately happens, based on his draft position alone, he'll probably get another chance at a starting job. But I think you're dead on. Where he settles in is into that very good backup. I mean, if you need him to come in and manage a couple of weeks of games, I think he's great. But if you're talking about leading your team and taking them over the hump, I don't think you see it. And I think this game right here, sadly, I mean, I don't wish it for the guy, even though I didn't think he was great. Sadly, I think this is truly the end of Mariota as a starting quarterback, like at least potential-wise, in my eyes. But that's just me.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you.
So you said you had 3 on your stock down. So before we wrap up today, give us your last stock down. Then we'll run through. We'll tally up our picks. And
well, it's a guy you got to see if you watched the Panthers play. You got to see him. I posted I made a meme. That was one I made myself. I'm going to pat myself.
I liked it.
I didn't steal it. I took a vision from like where a quarterback would see a colored picture. And then I went into filters and I made a black and white version. I put them parallel to each other, and I made the color version what a normal quarterback would see, and then I made the black and white version what Jameis sees. 5 picks. You got it. I mean, if I'm him, I come to press conference and I think I just lie and say, "Listen, I never told anybody this, but I'm colorblind."
Here, and for you viewers, I'll put it up on the screen for you just in case you missed it. 5.
I try not to advertise it, but after today, I got to come clean. I'm colorblind. It's hard for me to differentiate the uniforms. 46.8 quarterback rating.
And 5 interceptions.
With jeepers, I don't know. I don't even know who the backup is in Tampa, but can he? I mean, I just put that guy in and say, listen, do not throw it to the other team. I don't care what you do. Throw it in the ground,
anywhere,
throw it out of bounds, hand it off when we call run plays. Just don't throw it to the Carolina side. Those guys wearing those uniforms. And 5 interceptions, just when you think he had a halfway decent game, and the whole Bruce Arians, quarterback whisperer, he's going to fix Jameis. Well, Jameis.
We just broke him again.
Jameis got to go back in the shop because whoever fixed him just put some duct tape and it fell off.
It fell off.
He's another guy. He's going to be, to me, I know he threw for 400 yards, but when you throw 54 times and you're playing from behind,
exactly,
you're going to get that. I think he's another guy at some point here you're going to look at and say he's probably a number 2 that can come in and spell a team for a couple games when there's an injury or someone struggling. But he's not a guy you build your franchise around like they initially thought. And I think this was, we talk about Mariota. This had to be the year. I think for Winston too, with Arians coming in, people said if he don't get it done with Bruce Arians as his coach, a quarterback's coach, who's famous for working with some of the best quarterbacks in the league, if he can't get Jameis on the right path, it's probably not going to happen. Well,
especially in a year where Atlanta's in the dumpster. Let me repeat that. Atlanta's in the dumpster. And Drew Brees is hurt. Cam Newton is hurt. I mean, this is your year. If you're Tampa, this is your shot to be able to. And this game right here was a big one. going to London, a chance to take Carolina, jump up against them, stay right there with New Orleans. This was a huge game for them. And he came out, and I'll put it up there again, 5 interceptions today. So, yeah, I'm right there with you, buddy. But so before we wrap up, guys, this week's picks, John, we're going to wrap up before this game ends, but it is 24-3. So I'm going to go on and call it and wrap them up in our picks here. But unless we see an epic comeback here, both of us went 2-2 for the week. So you still maintained your lead right there on daily fantasy, guys. I hope you looked at those picks because you could have won some pretty good money today if you paid attention to some of them. But nicely done today, John. And looks like your Steelers are finally going to get a nice win. They're looking good.
Yeah, Hodges just threw a pick, but like you said, I think they're safe here. Like 7-8 minutes left here in the fourth. How about that? Undrafted free agent out of Samford. And I saw him and come in last week, and I said to my son, who's also a Steeler, I said, I know it's a limited sample size. He was a little bit more impressive than Mason Rudolph was, and if he's going to play a halfway decent, they might have a decision, to make. One of the reasons they traded Josh Dobbs to Jacksonville was this kid. Is they wanted the discussion in that room was, can we keep him? And in other words, can we sneak him down to the practice squad and keep Dobbs, or will someone blame him? And they took that chance and they kept Dobbs, and they got him onto the practice squad. When that happened, then they said, well, let's trade Dobbs to Jacksonville and bring Hodges up. And that's exactly what they did. And so, I'm not going to say, it's going to be the Tony Romo story, but if he can come in and give them a little bit of good play like this, that's a nice surprise and a nice thing to have. They just need some consistency. You see a game they play like this tonight, and you say, where's this been all year? That's the frustrating thing. Is the potential's there, but they just haven't put it together in the whole game like they did tonight. So, and let's be real, Chargers are struggling right now as well. So
they are.
But a win's a win. We'll take it. We needed it. We're still going to be 2-4, but 1-5 is, as a Steeler fan, that's not a territory we're used to being in.
No.
We're not there thanks to the win tonight, but they still got an uphill battle. The wild card's not coming from our division. You have to win this division to get in. And so I don't know if the hole they dug is too big. They definitely have to win all their division games the rest of the year, and then see where the chips fall.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, I'm going to wrap everything up here, let you catch the end of that game. Guys, before we wrap up, I do want to let you know, if you aren't familiar with both of our shows, make sure you check out mine and John's podcast. John hosts the Sports Card Nation podcast, and I host Let Me Get That Potograph. I know, John, you just dropped an episode on Friday. Who was your guest this week?
Lou Papa Jr.
Lou. What's up, Mr. Papa? The man with like the most ridiculous collection of cards ever.
Insane.
Nice. Yeah, he's a fun interview. So definitely go take a listen to that episode. Also, on Let Me Get That Potograph this week, I had Tim Virgilio from Signatures for Soldiers on the show. And we're giving away a free box of Gold Standard football from Top Notch Sports Break. Nice. So free box there from the guys over at Top Notch. Definitely go check it out over at Hobby Roundup on all of our social medias. And John, it's been fun, my friend, and I will see you next week for episode number 4.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Well, thanks so much, guys, for joining us, and we will see you next week.
See you next week, everyone.